And we're back here. 215-204-9449 is the number if you want to call and hang with us. I'm sure you want to lament about this Temple game yesterday. It was a tough one. It will stick in your stomachs for a while. That's a bad loss. They outplayed Indiana for almost all the second half, and they couldn't just find a way to squeeze it out at the end. Oladipo with the dagger 3 to put them up by 4. LaSalle also in the Big Five. They found a way to get a victory yesterday with Garland hitting that layup with about 2 seconds to go. So there's a lot going on right now in Philly hoops. And then you saw in Philadelphia the other day, Florida Gulf Coast came in here, and they found their way going to the Sweet 16, now moving on to Texas to play Florida. And now joining us on the hotline is a man that knows the Philadelphia area very well, coaching Villanova from 1992 to 2001, now with CBS and does a phenomenal job, and that's Steve Lappas. Steve, it's Zach Gelb, Hayley, Condon, and Chase Sr. How are you?
I'm doing great, Zach. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great myself, and I saw you were tweeting yesterday about the refs, and I saw this game yesterday. Anthony Lee and Jake O'Brien, there were some bad calls up against them, going up against Zeller, and that killed them where they needed him defensively, and they did a good job up against Zeller yesterday, but also in the second half, Khalif Wyatt was just being mugged, and he couldn't find a way to really get open that much as he was able to in the first half. You being a head coach for how many years you have been, I would have to imagine that you were very ticked off yesterday with this refereeing.
Well, I was double upset because I hadn't watched a game with that much angst in a long time. First of all, I am friends with Fran Dunphy for years, but also my son's a graduate assistant at Temple, so I was absolutely out of my mind watching the game. And I haven't been emotionally involved in a game in 8 years, but I certainly was yesterday.
And your son has done an incredible job on the staff with Fran Dunphy. We've been following that squad for the whole season. But I would have to imagine yesterday the poor shooting, the refereeing, and then also Leon O'Brien getting in foul trouble had to factor into this Temple loss down the stretch.
But, let's say this first. Khalif Wyatt is just an unbelievable player. I mean, the confidence and the swagger that he plays with, you don't find anywhere in the country. That being said, unfortunately, the rest of the team scored 21 points in the game, and it's hard to. Playing against a top team, that's hard to do. And certainly the refereeing, I don't think was great. I thought Khalif was at the end of the game, the last 5 minutes. It was so hard to get him the ball because he was being held a lot, but they did make the plays, and you got to give it to Indiana today. Certainly, that in the end. Oladipo made the first free throw, and then he made the 3 to win the game. And, there's nothing you can say about it, but Temple did a great job. You couldn't have had a better game plan than Fran had. Slowing Indiana down was critical. It's the least points that they scored this year in a winning game. So give Temple all the credit in the world. It just fell a little bit short.
Steve, Chase Sr. here. Khalif Wyatt scores 20 of Temple's 29 first-half points, and in the second half, he got his first basket with 19:33 left and was held scoreless until the 10:33 mark of the second half. From a coaching standpoint, what was the defensive change that Indiana made to lock down Khalif Wyatt?
They started really trying to deny him the ball, and really that's the best way to play Khalif Wyatt is, once he's got it, it's too late because he's going to take you. So the best way to limit Khalif Wyatt is to try and just don't worry about anybody else and deny him the ball, and that's what they were doing. And also the kid had to be a little bit gassed. You can't do what he had to work so hard just to get open. Forget about making a shot. So it was a tough situation. But when they changed their game plan to not playing him like normal, where you would play normal defense, normal help defense, where they just worried about him, when they changed to that, it certainly made a difference.
And you see this team, and down the stretch in this season, one player that really turned it around was Scooty Randall. But yesterday, he was 0 of 11 from the field. He made a big difference on the defensive end. He kind of reminded me like how Relier Hollis Jefferson played in the Kansas game, how he was great defensively, but his offensive game was just putrid. And Dunphy really didn't take out Scooty Randall that much. You have Dalton Pepper on the bench, and he's been inconsistent as well this year, but he has experience getting to the Final Four, and he's a big guard. Do you think Dunphy should have made the switch a little bit and put in Pepper instead of Scooty Randall?
Fran Dunphy knows his team better than anybody, and he certainly knows the upside of Scooty Randall. And I've been there. You wait for a guy. He's your guy. He's been with you for 4 years, 5 years really, because he redshirted. And you just feel like any second now he's going to start doing what he normally has done. And in the end, he didn't do it. So I would do the same thing that Fran did. You have loyalty to these kids. He's seen Scooty Randall play well for 5 years, 4 years on the court, and 5 years in the program. And he just went with him to the I absolutely would have done the same thing, and I think most coaches would have.
Now, Scooty Randall and Jake O'Brien playing in their last games as Temple Owls and in their NCAA careers. Scooty goes 0 for 12 from the field. Jake O'Brien goes 0 for 4 from the field in the game. Obviously, that's a depressing way to go out. And as many years as you coached, after that game, I know it's a tough one to swallow for Temple, but what do you tell senior players who kind of ended their career on a sour note like that?
Thanks for everything, guys. You were terrific.
Mm-hmm.
And that is it's the truth, and it's absolutely what I'm sure Fran said. Matter of fact, I know that's what Fran said. And these kids tried their absolute best. We all get frustrated as coaches, and with ourselves, with the kids, whatever. That's part of what we do. But when it's all said and done, these are good kids. They did everything they could. They wanted to win in the worst way. They probably feel worse than the coaches. Well, it's probably close, but these kids gave everything they had, and yesterday, for whatever reason, they didn't have it. And it happens because that's how sports is.
Steve Lappas joins us on the hotline, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. Zach Gelb, Hayley, Condon, and Chase Sr. here with you. And, Coach, one thing that I really questioned in this game, and I'm not blaming any part of this game on Fran Dunphy. I see people killing him on Twitter, and I just think
let me just say this. That would be so ridiculous.
Nonsense.
It's not even worth addressing.
Blasphemy.
It's absolutely nonsense, and people just don't know what they're talking about. This guy didn't have the most talented team this year, and they almost beat Indiana. They had some thrills going up against Syracuse and beating them. They played tough in Kansas, but coming out of that timeout when there was 10 seconds left on the shot clock, they generated a poor shot selection with Reliever Hollis Jefferson airballing it. What did you see on that play?
It was one of those things where, it just came down to the way Indiana was defending. And if you listen to what Tom Creed said after the game, his defense is really what won the game for him in the last 5 minutes. They defended very well in that possession, and it happens. You just, you design something, you say, I want this done. Well, guess what? And this is what people don't really realize. As much as I'm saying I want to do this, that other coach over there is trying to do something also. He's trying to stop me from doing it. And in this case, you got to understand this. He had the better players. Indiana had the better players. Matter of fact, after Khalif Wyatt, if you were choosing up teams and you put the 5 Temple starters on the floor with the 5 Indiana starters, there's a good chance that your first picks, Khalif Wyatt will be in there, and then it'll be all Indiana guys. So, that's why we got to understand that, yes, Fran didn't want that shot. Certainly it was a bad shot. It was a bad offensive set, however you want to say it. But that other coach and that other team, he's trying to stop you from doing things. And in that particular case, he won out, but he also had the better guys.
Steve, we've had a lot of guests on this show, and we've asked them all about Khalif Wyatt. And now that he's a senior, he's played his last game. Now is the next step for him, whether it's going to be overseas or if he gets the opportunity to play in the NBA. After watching him this season, he led the A-10 in scoring with 19.9 points per game. He was the Atlantic 10 Player of the Year. With his skill set, I know he's not the best all-around player, but his offensive skill set and his offensive capabilities are one of the best in the country. Can that skill set translate to the National Basketball Association?
Well, here's what I'm going to say first. He's definitely going to be in camps. He could get drafted in the second round. I think that's a possibility. He's one of these guys, he's a guy that you can't sit there and say, well, how fast is he? How high does he jump? How quick is he? He's one of these guys that you say, you know what? I don't know if he can do this. I don't know if he can do that. But he may be just one of those guys that gets it done. And that's something we're not going to know about until he gets there and he starts playing against guys at that level. Because, it's like in the NFL, they look at the combine. What does he run the 40 in? How much does he bench press? But that doesn't mean you're a player. Right. And that's the same thing with this kid. This kid, no, he doesn't jump the highest. No, he's not the fastest guy in the world. But you know what? He may be just one of those guys that can play. And that's what really matters.
I think you're exactly right. He's resilient, and he's a tough kid, and he's overcome a lot this year, and he put himself in a bad situation down there in Atlantic City, but he's grown off that, and he's done an incredible job, and he does an internship, actually. I don't know if you know about this. He goes out there and helps homeless people during the basketball season, so he's an incredible kid.
He's a great kid, and kids do dumb things. That's why they are called kids.
You're telling me that, Coach. I know that for a fact. Steve Lappas joins us on the hotline, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. So let's move away from Temple right now. Also in Philadelphia this week at the Wells Fargo Center, a team that I saw play twice was Florida Gulf Coast. This story is just incredible. A 15 seed get into the Sweet 16.
It's just an unbelievable story, but that just speaks to the fact that college basketball is way way different. Years ago when Richmond beat Syracuse in a 15-2 game, or when Hampton beat Iowa State in a 15-2 game, or Coppin beat South Carolina in a 15-2 game, it was way different. Those 15s won by 2, by 3. Now 15s are going out and whipping Georgetown and whipping San Diego State, and it just speaks to the fact that the game has become much closer together. Let's understand this. Which level of program is kids leaving early for the NBA going to affect more? It's going to affect the top programs, because that's where those kids would be. Kids in the Big Ten, in the Big East, in the ACC, in the SEC, in those places. So now what's happened is, without those stars that are all going for the NBA, they have maybe freshmen that could go to the NBA, and other teams have seniors. And what happened, and that's what's been the great equalizer here. So there's 15s have gotten a lot closer to 2s, and I will say this, no question, it's coming. 16 is going to beat a 1 very soon.
And this Florida Gulf Coast team, they're young too, and they only have 2 seniors on the team. Really only one plays in Sherwood Brown, but they're a fun brand of basketball to watch. They talk on the court. They're a cocky bunch for a 15 seed, but they backed it up winning all these games. And it kind of reminds me of like this havoc defense that you saw a few years ago from Shaka Smart and the Rams. You know it's coming and you can't stop it. And their offense, you know it's coming and they'll throw it down in your face, and it's almost impossible to stop. But if you're Florida with Billy Donovan, and Donovan's squad is going to be the favorite, and as they should be, how would you try to slow down these guys?
This is a hard place for Billy Donovan to be. Of all the teams to play, they already beat Miami this year. I guarantee you that Andy Enfield, but this is what I would do. I'd come to practice today, and I'd have everybody in the locker room, and I'd say, let me ask you a question. Did you get any letters from Florida for them to recruit you? Did you get any letters from Florida for them to recruit you? And the answer's going to be no. So, hey, guys, these guys did not want you. So they're going to be fired up enough. They'll be even more fired up. So, they've got nothing to lose. And I know, people say, well, yeah, they don't have anything to lose. They're playing with house money. They've been playing with house money from the beginning. And now the pressure is on Florida. But Florida's pretty good now. Let's understand that. And I think what happens is the best thing for Florida is, I'm sure the Florida players are attentive to what Florida Gulf Coast has done, and that's going to make a big difference.
A lot of brackets are busted so far right now for the people that did fill them out. When you look at the remaining teams right now, can you even pinpoint a clear-cut favorite, and if not, who do you like right now out of all the teams in the Sweet 16?
I've liked Duke from the beginning, but I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm not saying they're going to win the whole thing, but this LaSalle team has been a lot of fun to watch. And, Ramon Galloway has been spectacular. Tyrone Garland, no one has been able to stay in front of these guys. That's the bottom line. They got 4 guards. Sproul Wright has been playing unbelievable. They all have. Mm-hmm. And you got to give John Giannini credit. This team has been fun to watch, and I don't know if anybody, and I know you say Florida, it's close between Florida Gulf Coast and LaSalle as to who's playing better.
Dr. John has done an incredible job, and I remember when they came into the Liacouras Center, they got actually the doors just blown off of them. They got killed, but the one player that was consistent in that game and was playing good basketball was Garland, who hits the game-winning shot yesterday. And obviously, Duran, and you also see Galloway get a plethora of credit, as they should, because they're 2 better guards. But they need Garland to come up and play. He's the X-factor of this team, Coach.
Yes, he absolutely is the X-factor. They're just on a roll right now, where all their guys are feeling each other. They're feeling good about where they are. They have confidence, and they're just playing. So when you're watching them play, you're saying to yourself, these guys can get in the lane anytime they want. And in basketball, in the year 2013, is about getting into the lane off the dribble, drawing help, and kicking. And this team has shot 44% from the three-point line in the NCAA tournament. But I did want to add one thing. You got to give the school, LaSalle, a lot of credit. I mean, because John Giannini, he could, he has tried. He's gotten this thing going. Then he didn't get it going. In some other schools would have let somebody go, because that's how it is today. And I give LaSalle a lot of credit. They know John Giannini is a quality coach. They know he's a quality guy. And here's where they are now in the Sweet 16. They deserve it. They backed this guy up. Other schools would have gone south on him. It's happened. It's happened to a lot of people. Most people, as a matter of fact, in this business. Give LaSalle, the school, a lot of credit for sticking with John Giannini, and look what they're getting for it. Sweet 16, first time since 1955. Good for them.
Steve, Steve, I got one more question for you before we let you run. I've grown up in the Philadelphia area my whole life. I remember your days at Villanova, the latter part of your career at Villanova, rather. And you mentioned LaSalle, you mentioned Temple almost getting to the Sweet 16. You got to spend 9 years in Philadelphia coaching Villanova, a storied program inside a storied basketball tradition in the Big Five. I would just like you to elaborate on that experience.
It was the experience of a lifetime. We had a lot of great moments. We had some other moments that weren't so great. But, to be a part of Big Five history, tradition, Villanova's history and tradition, we did win a Big East tournament championship, which still remains as the only one in the history of the school. There were a lot of great times, and I'm thankful every day for the 9 years that I spent at Villanova. And there's no doubt that those years have kind of led to me being now at CBS and doing what I'm doing. So I've led a charmed life. I haven't worked a day in my life since I arrived on Villanova's campus in 1984. That's how I feel, and I continue to do that.
Coach, before we let me run, let me just say this. I always hear you're on with my good friend Sid Rosenberg. I was actually a guest of his show today, and I always say we got to get Steve Lappas on the air, and you did an incredible job today. Thanks so much, and let's talk to you again real soon.
We'll do it, guys. Thank you so much.
Steve Lappas right there, former Villanova head coach from 1992 to 2001. What we'll do now is we'll take a quick break, and we'll wrap things up coming right back after these short messages.